So, I don't know if I've really been so open yet about my love of psychedelics, especially LSD, especially magic mushrooms, and to a lesser extent dimethyltryptamine, DMT. But there was an incident that happened to me fairly recently that kind of triggered the most romantic week of my life, really. The greatest romance I've ever experienced, the most intense romance. And it all began with LSD and was completely kind of out of nowhere. It was a strange thing. And normally, when I take LSD, kind of makes the world seem, well, like heaven, really. As if I've been living in paradise all along and I just didn't see it. And I never really had particularly difficult or challenging trips, but this day was different. I was in Sicily and I had this nice kind of penthouse flat to myself, nothing fancy. It was rustic and kind of falling apart, but it was lovely, and it had the view of like the skyline of Sicily, and it was right in the centre, and so it was a lovely place I was living. And I thought, I'll take some LSD and enjoy this flat and just have a nice trip by myself in the flat. And I think the mistake I made was having like a quadruple espresso beforehand. And I've since realised that maybe coffee especially, and being over caffeinated, might basically produce too much tension and anxiety in the body, such that it kind of fucks with an LSD trip. And so, take notes, trippers, like protect yourself, don't overdo the coffee. But I started the trip by meditating, which is I found normally a good way. But as soon as I got up from that meditation bench, yeah, I was overwhelmed with suffering and desire and horniness and just a kind of yearning for union with a lover, and a despair of how alone I was. It was a difficult day. I became like an animal in that time. But I danced and I lifted my spirits a bit. And as the trip went on, like 3 or 4 hours in, it was evening, and I was looking in a mirror, which a lot of people say you shouldn't do, but I think is kind of bullshit. I was looking in a mirror, and it was weird. I could kind of see this matrix around me, as if I could see myself in a simulation, and I could see what seemed like the mask of a human being kind of being replaced over my face once again, and I decided I would put on my best clothes, and I'd been taking note on those fucking stylish Italians, and bought some new clothes so that I could be as stylish as they were. And I made myself look my best, and I decided I would go out drifting in Palermo, the capital of Sicily. And I drifted, and eventually I was drifting down this really rustic, cute alleyway. Palermo's full of these charming little side streets. And this one had plants all up and down the wall, and there was a bar there called Botanico, and that's why there were all of these plants, you see. And they were playing this 1970s kind of soul and funk music, so I thought, okay, this is probably the best place for me for now. This is pretty groovy. But I felt like an alien. I was there alone, and I don't speak any Italian, and everyone there was speaking Italian, of course. They were there with friends, and I felt a bit out of place, and I was tripping. But I decided to get a beer and smoke some rolled up cigarettes, such is the way of my people. And just kind of blend in and like be a part of the furniture a little bit. I got some weird looks, but hey, I'm fucking used to it. But eventually I noticed these two women like in the corner of my eye, and without even really looking at them properly, I just turned and said, "Hey, do you speak English?" and kind of struck up conversation. And one of them did, a Sicilian woman, an artist, it turns out. And we got talking, and I really just loved getting to know who she was. And I loved that she was an artist and that her art was so dark and like horrific and fucked up. There was something about her that seemed so mysterious and interesting. And when I looked into her eyes, as is, I suppose, fairly normal on LSD, it felt as if I could kind of dive in and swim in her soul. And we were up until the small hours talking, and she said, you know, I want to come back to yours, but I'm not sure if it's just because I've had a drink, so let's see how I feel tomorrow. And that was reasonable and fine. So we switched numbers, and the next day she invited me to her studio so that I could see her artwork. And when I was there, I told her, you know, I said, I really want to kiss you right now. And she said, what's stopping you? She said, what are you waiting for? And I said, your permission, which I think she liked. And it's good, I think. This is a big debate, right? Whether you should ask before you kiss. And I think it depends on the woman. But if the woman's super into feminism, which she is, I think it's usually makes a good impression if you ask permission before you kiss. So we kiss. And I tell her, honestly, that the previous day when we were speaking, I had completely fallen in love with her, which was just the truth. You know, I was amazed by her because to me, she looked like a goddess, just so stunningly beautiful. I still can't really believe how lucky I got, all in all, to have even had a week with her. And yeah, this is the thing. Like, why did it happen then? What was the role of LSD in that flow? And I think what happened is that LSD kind of broke me down somehow, and it broke down all of my defenses, such that normally if I'm talking with a beautiful woman, there's a bit of anxiety and fear, because it's like, how could I ever be with someone so beautiful? And should I trust my senses and relate to this person as they appear to be, which is a goddess? Or should I use my brain and be like, no, she is my equal, we will split the bill, she should feel just as lucky to be with me as I feel to be with her. Ego defenses, to protect yourself, to protect myself, they get in the way. And with her it was like, you know, we went out for dinner, we went out for lunch the next day, and I have sat across the table from the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. The idea of splitting the bill, no. I knew I was lucky just to be there with her, and that she would choose me to spend time with and show an interest in me. And so the week went on, and you know, it was beautiful. I won't go into the intimate details, but my apartment had a log fire and it had this lovely view, and we danced together, just the two of us, with fireworks going on in the background. You couldn't write this stuff. It felt like I was living in a romance novel. And this is age 35. You know, a part of me had started to fear, shit, maybe the most beautiful women are behind me, and maybe I'll never feel real love again. But that's the other thing. I feel as if the LSD had kind of reset my heart somehow. And I wonder if a lot of us never really get over the heartbreaks that we had as teenagers, because they hurt so much that we say, I'll never fall in love again because it hurts too much. I'll never allow myself to be that vulnerable again and to relate to someone with all my heart and to worship them. We are afraid to do that, to put our heart on the line. And so we protect ourselves with all of these defenses. And that's why you're not falling in love. Like, that's why people struggle with love. It's because of the ego defenses. And acid just swept them all away and reactivated my heart. And reactivated my capacity for real romance. It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. But it was a holiday romance, and it is often said that dating an artist is always problematic because their art will always come first. And I am the ultimate commitment phobe, probably because of my own defenses. But with her, I was like, fuck, let's just marry and make babies. But alas, she had not been using LSD, and was not in the place for a relationship. She wanted to focus on her art, and had come out of a relationship quite recently, and she felt it too, though. She felt that it was special, and she said that I believe she was sincere, and yeah, I mean, the second time we made love together, and this is a stunningly beautiful woman, I mean, I can't emphasize enough, but she said that was the first time in her whole life that she felt that she was actually loved by a man, which blew me away, and I took as a huge compliment, and a very sweet thing to say. But it wasn't really enough for her, it turns out. She still doesn't really want a man or want to be in a relationship. She wants to be independent and focus on her career and her art. So, it took some time after that holiday for me to really accept that and to really let it go and to just appreciate it for what it was, a beautiful week that kind of since has allowed me to, be more romantic, essentially, and it's kind of helped me to understand the nature of romance and what it really means to surrender to someone else's beauty and to worship and not be afraid to worship and not be defensive and try and make it equal all the time. This kind of weird obsession with equality, I think, is so defensive. Not everyone is my equal. Not everyone is your equal. And so stop trying to pretend, Sometimes you will be with someone and you will see them as a goddess or as a god. And you have a choice whether to have faith in your senses and to go with that, or to retreat into a kind of defensive strategizing and protectiveness. And I have learned through that experience that the most beautiful love is based on taking that risk of dropping the defenses and being willing to really worship someone, actually. And you'll be surprised to find that when you do, they will worship you back a lot of the time. But you shouldn't do it for that reason. That's the thing. You should do it because you want to worship. It's in your heart. And if they don't worship you back, you should basically still feel lucky to have been able to worship. And yeah, drop the ego games, people. Like, feel romance and love, and don't be afraid to value somebody. Stop treating this whole thing like a business strategy or a negotiation, and put your heart on the line, even though you know that it's foolish and you know that you will get hurt. That is love. It does hurt. It hurts from the beginning all the way through to the end, the various flavours of agony. And that is what love means, to endure that and still go with it. Thank you for listening, and I hope I inspire at least one of you to take that risk and have faith in love and worship somebody. Yes.